on YouTube. Day 36, 48 days with the 48 laws. Law 36, disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. By acknowledging a petty problem, you give it existence and credibility. The more attention you pay an enemy, the stronger you make him, and a small mistake often made worse and more visible when you try to fix it. It is sometimes best to leave things alone. If there's something you want but cannot have, show contempt for it. The less interest you reveal, the more superior you seem. So yeah, this is a pretty straightforward chapter. Things you want that you can't have, you want to treat them with disdain and contempt. He goes through two stories. The first one being a story about the early 1900s. Basically, Mexico had this revolutionary guy, Pancho Villa, and he was kind of like a Robin Hood, Don Juan kind of character to everybody. He basically attacked the government, gave money to the poor, and he also had his romantic life was very extravagant as well. So a lot of people within Mexico and in the Americas had a lot of admiration for him in the very, very early 1900s. And basically what happened was he starts a revolution, he gains an army, he's trying to fight the government, and then he basically loses, and he has to go back to Chihuahua, Mexico, where he basically has to go back to his old ways of banditry. Now, when he does this, the Mexican people kind of start not liking him because he's like just a regular bandit now. He decides at one point to go into America and Columbus, New Mexico, and he attacks and kills 17 soldiers and civilians. And Woodrow Wilson, who was a pacifist kind of leader of America, felt like, I have to kind of overstate. I have to basically show my manliness here. I need to act with boldness, and I have to conquer this guy. And it was called the Expedition Punitive. So basically, he sends an army because he does not want to be looked at as weak, and that was already kind of the image he had. So to add that to it, he felt like he needed to do something, and this is a transgression of the law. So basically, chase Pancho Villa. But the thing that they don't realize is that now that they're chasing him, because the Mexican people didn't like him before, they've actually switched up, because now they see that he's being attacked by such a big party like America. They're like, whoa, now we kind of like him again because he's so clever. He's got them going, so we're gonna and he's dodging and ducking them. They're we're kind of more on his side now. We don't really want America jumping in our shit. So they're giving them false advice. Long story short, he never gets caught by America, and America has to leave after some time. And the soldiers spend all this time, money, and effort trying to do this. They basically publicized all of this and publicized the failure. And they made it a lot bigger than it had to be. What he could have done was kind of kept this a little bit hush-hush, spoke to the Mexican government, told them to capture him. And because the Mexican people didn't already like Pancho Villa, they would have been more than happy to help. But because America jumped into their soil, it kind of switched the tides and the emotions of him, and it made basically America look like an idiot, because we couldn't catch one guy. We spent all this money. It was 100,000 something soldiers by the end, and everybody had to just leave, and they actually kind of got attacked on the way out. So kind of sucked in that sense. And then there was an observance of the law. So I think it was Henry VIII. I don't know. In America, you probably heard this story. I don't know which Henry is. I can't really find it fast enough. But basically, he's the Henry, the king, one of the kings of England that couldn't have, in the 1500s, couldn't have any daughters. So he basically, and they're very kind of superstitious and believed all the literal texts of the Bible. So he actually took the wife of his older brother Arthur, and as long as they didn't have sex, everything's all good and the marriage is valid. And basically, he remembers this line in the Bible that says, if you take your brother's wife and you sleep with her, it's basically incestuous, and you're not gonna bear any children. So his whole goal was, I need to not have her as a wife anymore. So he had two ways he had to do this. So one was I think it's the Roman Church. Yeah, pretty sure it was the Roman Church. Um, so he kind of had to go to, yeah, the Roman Catholic Church. He had to go through the Roman Catholic Church to get them to basically approve it. He knew they weren't going to approve it. They would never know that marriage. Catherine, his wife, also didn't want to go to a fucking nunnery. And that's where I guess they just sent women back in those days. Like, they could lock you away if they didn't want you anymore. So she didn't want to do that. So what he did was he just he sent her away to some island and just was like, yo, fuck it, I'm just gonna send you away to this island. You're gonna go there. So the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church is like, you're gonna be excommunicated from the church if you do this, and I'm not recognizing this new marriage to a younger woman. And I kind of left out that Catherine went through menopause, so there's no chance of having a son at this point. And that's really was his whole goal. And he gets this new marriage, and he kind of just ignores the Roman Catholic Church, and this is an observance of the law. They keep threatening him with excommunication, all these other things, but he just says, all right, fuck it, I'm going to start my own church, the Church of England, and I'm the head of Church in England. We're going to recognize my marriage. And basically he wins in the end because the Roman Catholic Church keeps threatening him, but they can't really do anything. So the whole key to power on this one is that when you kind of play the card of contempt, you kind of put yourself in a superior position and you let the smaller problem go by the wayside. Also, in other situations like, and he kind of touches this in art of seduction, and this is a personal experience I had. I know this chick I used to work with, when I first started the job, I found her attractive. Went to a party or something, and we kind of like made out or kissed or something, but she was kind of talking to some other dude, and I didn't really realize that. I guess it was just kind of bad timing. They went on a date or something, and they were supposed to go to the date that party we're at, but something happened where we ended up staying there. So I kind of find out about that later, and then I hear that she went on a subsequent date after the party. So I'm kind of like, all right, fuck it, this is and you're working with them, you're close quarters, and it was at like a restaurant job. So I'm kind of thinking in my head, like, literally thinking back to this law. It's like, if you want something, disdain is the best reactionist things you can't have. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna ignore her. I'm not trying to play myself, get myself wrapped up. She wants to talk to this guy, and I keep hearing this dude come up in conversation. Remember, we had another outing for work where like one of the bartenders invited us out. We go out, and I hear this, and I was kind of thinking he was falling to the wayside. Then I hear this dude come up again, and I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm just gonna kind of ignore her, mingle with everybody else. I remember one point at that particular guy, I look at her face, she is super, she just looks pissed off. And I really didn't understand that I was actually having an effect. I didn't realize later until a couple months later. But long story short, I want to shorten it. The next coming weeks throughout work, whenever we're working together, I can see that she's showing me extra attention. And I'm kind of like thrown off by it. And then I soon find out that the dude, he kind of fell off the map, but she keeps showing me all this attention. And long story short, we ended up having a little thing for a couple months. But the point of that story was when I was kind of pursuing her, I would hear that this other dude would come up. But once I started kind of just completely ignoring, it put me in a position where she basically started coming towards me because she couldn't possess me then. And then the keys to power, he kind of explains that depending on what their intent is. So if their intent is to hurt you, ignoring them is just going to infuriate them because they're not getting to you. If their intent is to possess you in some way, ignoring them is going to kind of fuel them to move towards you further. Now, if I acted in the other way, kind of made it open, I would have appeared a lot weaker. And then probably in weighing out whether me or that other dude, and just not really trying to put in his actions, did kind of fuel it too, because he was chasing very hard. I probably wouldn't have even looked like that great of a pick. And it was kind of something I was doing subconsciously. I've never really had a hard, tangible observation where like something like that worked. But I remember asking her and asking about the specific party where I completely kind of ignored her and she was mad. She literally brought it up. She's like, yeah, I was I was freaking pissed, and you just kind of you're just completely ignoring me. And then I was like, it's crazy. You really noticed that? That's something that I wouldn't have really expected to notice, but it kind of shows how that is the best revenge to something you would have. So even if it is, they talked about George Sand, who's actually a woman. I forgot her real name. She wrote under a pseudonym. She was kind of brought to be in a club, and actually in the Oscars, a lot of people are doing that. It's like a lot of people complain about the Oscars and like, oh, it's there's the glass ceiling, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that. But there's a lot of people that are kind of like, and I think it's the more powerful position is like, dude, I don't even want to be part of the Oscar. Like, if you're not going to be accepting of everybody, then I'm not really even trying to be part of the Oscars. And that is kind of a position where it puts you in more of a position of power. So that's it for this one. This was a little bit long. Day 36, I believe. You can pick up your copy of this book in the link in the description below. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to try to bang all these out in the next couple days. So, peace.